nothing is expensive. Right? Nothing is expensive. And I was listening to a Jim Rohn audio series a long time ago, and he said to his mentor, Mr. Earl Shoaff, he said, Mr. Shoaff, he said, I can't buy that because it's too expensive. He said his mentor said to him, it's not too expensive, Mr. Rohn, you can't afford it. And the difference is, if it's too expensive, the problem is it. And you can't fix it. But if you can't afford it, the problem is you, and you can fix you. You're the only person who can fix you. And obviously, when I talk about fixing you, I'm talking about your habits, right? I'm not talking about, you get it. So nothing's expensive. Everything just costs what it costs. In fact, there are things you buy right now that there was a time in your life when you felt like they were expensive. They were too expensive. So when I had a poverty mindset, I used to like my whole life was figuring out, how can I get it for less? 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 And I remember my brother Rob, he went off to the Marine Corps. And we grew up really, really poor. Like there was 9 of us in our house, unless my parents brought some of our cousins to live with us for the summer, and then there might have been 13 or 14 of us, right? And we never lived in mansions or anything. And my parents worked hard, but you know, it was a struggle to feed 7 sons, and then sometimes their cousins. And so I learned how to take something that was not enough and make it do. My dad called that Mr. Make Do. I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Make Do. You just find what you need and you make it do, right? You find what you can find and make it do. And so my whole mentality growing up was, okay, we would buy cheap cars and then we'd spend hours and hours working on them, changing the transmission, changing the engine, fixing it. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've lived that life, right? And it wasn't a bad experience. It was just my experience. A lot of times we think of things in the past that were difficult and painful. We think, and it wasn't even painful, but we think of things that are difficult and painful as being bad. They weren't bad. They were part of your preparation for your assignment. Anyway, so I would buy raggedy cars. In fact, my very first business I didn't even realize it was a business, was when I came home for the summer from after my first year in college, and I bought a car for $50 from the Paxton Herald in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I drove it around all summer. Then I sold it for $300 before I went back to college, right? And I made $250 profit on that car. Well, the business that I started buying old raggedy cars, fixing them up, and selling them, right? And so if I was going to buy a house, I wanted to get the cheapest rent I could get. And if that meant I had to spend months working on the house, then I would spend months renovating the house for the person who owned the house, so I could live in the house and only pay $150 a month for rent, or $250 a month for rent, or $300 for rent, right? So I would get the house for as little as I could and do as much work as I had to make that work, right? I remember the very first house that I bought was a 5-bedroom brick row house in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 636 Emerald Street. And I bought it at the tax sale, because there's a sale in every county. They have a tax sale. They have a judicial sale and a municipal sale, municipal sale. I think they're what it's called. Well, when you buy a house on the tax sale, for the judicial sale, you don't have to pay off the old taxes. You just buy the house and you own it free and clear. And so, but you go to an auction and there are other people bidding on this house. And so I had like 7 houses that I was going to bid on, right? And I didn't have a ton of money. I had a job. So, I had a few $1,000s. And so I go to this house, and I had a couple houses. And some of the houses I looked at, I wasn't really crazy about, but I was willing to bid on them. And then people were like running these things up into the thousands of dollars. I'm like, I'm not going to get a house today, right? And so then 636 Emerald Street, whatever the lot number was, blah, 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 it came up and said, can I get a bid for $200? Can I get a bid for $200? Because they started all the bids at $200. Can I get a bid for $200? Nobody said anything. And I'm like, I know how to negotiate. I'm not going to be in a hurry, because then people are going to start like, can I get a bid for $200? I waited until he said it about 4 times, and I'm like, I'll give you a bid for $200. Like, I didn't want anybody to see my hand. I didn't go, he said, I got 200, can I get 250? I got 200, can I get 250? I got 200, can I get 250? Sold for $200. I bought that house for $200. That was my first house. I spent years renovating that house, which is okay, but that's what I knew how to do. That was the first house I ever bought. I spent $200 on that house because I thought buying a house the regular way, it was too expensive. But it wasn't too expensive. I just couldn't afford it. And the reason I couldn't afford it was because of the way that I was thinking about money. And the way that I was thinking about money as it relates to me. And the way that I thought, the things that I thought you had to do to make a lot of money, I wasn't good at any of them, I thought. Are y'all tracking? I thought I wasn't good at any of them. I was actually good at some of them. I just didn't know I was good, and I didn't know the things I was good at could make you money. It's so interesting how we all have scotomas. We all have blind spots. And I had some blind spots that were like, I don't know. And so that was the first house I bought. Well, the last house I just bought was $2.4 million. That's way more expensive than 200. So what happened? Did houses change? Did the housing market change? Yeah, houses got more expensive. So nothing is really expensive. Everything costs what it costs. Like, it amazes me that people obsess over the price of gas. And they know they have to put gas in their car anyway. What difference does it make? What difference does it make how much it costs? I'm not saying that because, and I know some of you are going to say, oh, that sounds like a snooty rich person. No. I'm just saying, when I was poor, I didn't obsess over the price of gas. Why? I knew I had to put it in my car anyway. I was either going to put it in my ar or wear out my sneakers, right? Those are my choices. And so nothing is expensive. I just have to, if I want to be able to afford things that I desire to have, I have to learn how to think better, right? And if I learn how to think better, then I will be able to afford whatever I desire to afford. In fact, by the time you watch this video, you can go back to a video that I released as a live on July 14th, 2025, called Money Traps. And I break down how, for rich people, everything costs the same amount. It doesn't matter if I'm buying a bottle of water, a pair of shoes, a car, a house, or a private island. It all costs the same amount. So if you want to go back and watch that video, okay, from July 14th, 2025, as a live. Go watch that. It's called Money Traps. Okay, cool.